Mhm. And hello, friends. We have Natasha Kivak with us, and Natasha is professional ayahuasca shaman. This is a new type of profession we can claim in our community. And now we want to ask you about your professional path, education, etc. So, Natasha, how you got to this life? What happened? Because I can tell also preview. I think 2011 or 10, right? I was passing San Francisco and I met some quite in the middle crisis woman who like, where's ayahuasca here? Where's ayahuasca here? And I pointed, it was you. And when somebody told me you become shaman, I was like, no way, that's not possible. That's fake. But then I met you and I start asking you about your past. And I realized, like, yeah, okay, a lot of years. It's like 12 years right now. And you did a lot. And it's enough for very good education, right? And also some professional work. So tell us what happened. How did you get there?
Yeah. So hello everyone. Good to see you.
A
So
little
many
bit more in
people.
the microphone. So,
So is it better now?
yeah.
One, two, three, four, five. Okay. So first of all, I'm in a car because I'm in California right now. We have massive outage. So I'm
Oh.
sitting in a car because the only way I can actually find a connection, right? We have electricity outage, we have internet outage. Even in San Francisco, some people cannot connect to internet. So my
Maybe it's
apologies
start
for.
of apocalypse or big ceremony. What is it? What
We
happened?
have rain season, right? Rain season in
Ah,
California is
rain,
very much like
rain.
nobody expects it.
Oh my
Okay,
gosh, yeah, it's rainy. Who
it's
could
very rainy.
expect something
Yeah,
coming? Perfect weather always. Oh,
yeah.
okay, so it's a California disaster.
It's a California disaster.
Rain.
Yes. So rolling back 12 years ago. Yeah, I was kind of in the middle of my, I would call it beginning of early midlife crisis. That's what I thought at that time,
Mhm.
right? And turned out it was a little bit more than early midlife crisis. It was more like identity crisis at the end, right? And almost by chance, I found ayahuasca in Peru. I drank one time, and then I had these feelings like, that's it, I found it. And then, yes, and then I became kind of talk of the town because all my friends were making fun of me because I was going to parties and asking about, like, okay, where's the ayahuasca healers? Where I could find circles, but it's not, it should be not a church environment. So I was not looking for ayahuasca churches, for Santa Daime. I wanted tribal. Right. So that's how I got into it. And then I went to Peru. So I was sitting in California for about a year.
After
And
first your
then
first experience in Peru. Mhm.
I had my first experience around Cusco, right?
Uh-huh.
And with all the snowberry that we have about ayahuasca tourism, it's actually ayahuasca tourism that saved the tradition. Because if you look at the
Mm.
age of practitioners, you still have those old abuelos, abuelas, grandfathers, grandmothers who are in their 90s, 80s, 70s, right? It's like old generation. And then you
Mhm.
have a huge gap. There are almost none practitioners my age. And then you see a lot of those youngs want to be shamans. Some of them are good, some of them are not good at all. But because working with gringos who coming to Peru for ceremonies became kind of a profitable job. And when a young
Mhm.
guy or a girl were deciding what kind of work I want to do in life, how I'm going to support myself and my family, right? So working in the fields or going to work as a clerk in a bank, like other options, right? Given other options, becoming a practitioner, if you have somebody in a family who can teach you, suddenly became quite like possible.
It becomes finally popular again.
Yes, 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 yes.
Mhm.
And
So what
really, this
happened in
whole
between this gap of 70 or 80 and young generation? You couldn't make money, it wasn't popular, it was prohibited. What happened in Peru during those
no,
years?
it was not prohibited. There were two things. One thing was quite practical, that other options like social professional options became available and people
Mhm.
started migrating in cities. They started doing into more like like civilized works.
Mhm.
The whole
But
lifestyle
what
of
happened with
villages
this
were not so much.
tradition before? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm breaking this, interrupting you. Sorry. So, what happened before that? Like, how many of curanderos or shaman was like, if we go back to 100 years ago or 150
Mhm.
years ago? What position? What was the position of a shaman in a village? Is it every village had a shaman, or not many of
Oh, they
them?
had basically, they, as you know, they don't call themselves shamans. They call
Curandera,
themselves medicos.
medicos,
Curandero,
not curanderos,
medicos.
medicos.
Curandero, it's more like Spanish thing, but like if you ask what is the profession, they
Uh
go
huh.
medico. Soy medico.
Medical.
Soy
Okay.
medico. I mean, right? So the main
Healer,
job was like
basically.
when people get healer. Yeah, yeah. And it had to do with physical. It had to do with psychological as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
But main job was basically when somebody gets ill, they would come to practitioner. They would not even drink ayahuasca. Actually, ayahuasca was drank only by medicos, by practitioners, by shamans, as we call.
Ah,
And then in their
okay.
vision and their shamanic journey, they will diagnose the problem and they will prescribe the seed, like spirit will tell them like what this person needs to do to restore the balance.
Uh-huh. So they
And that,
drink it
yeah,
not with others, for themselves to get vision. Uh-huh.
yeah, that's how it was traditionally done. And even now, if you go in a village, you can see like bunch of gringos sitting with this great maestro and local guys, they are not coming. And I ask them like, why you are not drinking? We're coming from like all around the world. And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, no, I'm scared. I drank once, right? I'm going to tell my grandchildren how scary it was.
It is scary. I always tell only stupid people don't are not
Yeah,
afraid of Mamacita,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Uh,
Okay. So what happened? You went back to Peru, looking for what? Looking for more
I
healing, or
quit,
looking to
basically, I quit
become a
my job.
shaman? What happened? Was
No,
it
no, no, I
was
didn't
it
have it.
2011 or 12? I think
12. It was
12.
2012.
Mm-hmm.
I never had intention to become a shaman. It took me about 10 therapy sessions just to say like I'm a shaman. It was like such a big like what kind of job
Can
is
I
that?
ask, at what year, like if you started like 2011, 2012, at what year you started to thinking of like I am a shaman, I'm not just drinking it for healing? What happened? When it was this
I went
therapy
to
session?
Peru. Yes, so I went to my initiation dieta with
Uh-huh.
intention to learn how to hold ceremonial space for myself.
Oh, okay. So
Because
why did
I've
you
been
need it for
sitting
yourself?
I've been sitting with practitioners here and the groups were becoming bigger and bigger. And at some point I realized that I'm just like sucking in all this energy. I'm like, like a vacuum cleaner. And I
Okay.
had no tools, I had no skills to control my own kind of energetic empathy, like taking on myself what was, so
So
you're
it
sitting there,
start
it's like, oh my God,
happened
it's
to
not even,
you.
yeah, yeah. So I went to
Uh-huh.
Peru to learn how to hold ceremonial space for myself, right? At the beginning, I didn't want to study Shipibo language, chanting Shipibo language, because like, why would I chant in Shipibo? Like I perfectly can chant, like I can read translations, understand what they're doing, basically scripted there. And even Shipibo say like chant in whatever language you want,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you need to understand what you're doing, right? And you need
Mm-hmm.
to develop this machinery, this called machinery of the chant, like for this thing to work, like this rhythmical, melodical thing. Yeah. So yeah, I went there to learn this thing, and actually, I was quite curious. It was purely curiosity and this like sense of wonder, and it's like, oh, magic is back in the world, like Harry Potter, right? This
Yeah.
like, oh, you're living in the world, and it's like very rational. It's very like it's a good life, like Silicon Valley, and then it's like, oh my God, magic is back. Let's figure it out.
I always
So
tell to my students that give me an intention, and curiosity is very proper intention.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Plus, of course, I had my own problems at the time. I tried to kind of sort them out here, didn't work. So it's kind of several things were coming together. It's like, yeah, like going to Peru for a year plus minus seems like a good idea, right?
So you took a break from your work?
I quit.
You quit.
I quit. I quit my corporate work in Silicon Valley, and I went to Peru. 15 months later, I'm finishing
And
my
your daughter was grown
traditional.
up, right?
Say it again.
Your daughter was already grow up.
She just went to college, and
Oh,
her father
okay.
was taking care of her during that time. Yeah.
Okay, so you
Basically, it
had
was her.
this
It
ability
was
to do that.
her. It was her who actually pushed me, because final push, because I was very concerned about her, of course. And I told her, and she said, Mama, I read an article recently, and there are many people, right, who have regrets before they die. And nobody has regrets about things that have done, right? The worst of the worst, right? Whatever they've done, nobody has regrets about that, but pretty much everyone has regrets about things that they haven't not done in their lives.
So she
So
pushed.
for you, it's going to be, yeah. And I was like, thank you. I got the point. I'm out.
Okay. So what happened? And you spent year and a half in the jungle in
15 months.
Huh?
I spent there 15 months.
15 months.
I did traditional initiation diet, right? There is a traditional protocol, and it's not 2 weeks, it's not 1 month, it's not 3 months. It has to be a longer period of time, at least how it was done in old times. And those maestros, how they were trained. It's a year and a half usually.
So
By
you
the end
did
of
the
the year, I had a
whole
weird
first initiation.
Yeah. By the end of first year, I had first I had a weird feeling that I kind of figured it out, but I had not quite understand what I figured out. So basically, mind is slower. It's catching up bit by bit. Also, my maestro told me now it's time to go and practice.
So he kind of told you go and practice.
Yes,
So
it started even
he
when I was
actually
there.
pushed you to practice. Oh,
He didn't push me, but he told me that if you want to
continue.
really understand it, how it works, you need to start practicing. It's not theoretical knowledge, it's practical knowledge. So whatever when we dieting, this knowledge is kind of in what is the word? I forgot the word. Like a dormant state in us. But when we're working, when we're practicing, that's when it's getting activated.
Let's start activated.
Exactly. You
So
have to be
you
super
went
cautious
back
and
to San
realistic.
Francisco and start to do a little bit of ceremonies. So
I went back to San Francisco. I found the job again in yet another startup. And then just things started like friend of mine showed up and he told me my wife, she just lost whatever. There was a problem. Can you do the ayahuasca ceremony for us? I did ceremony for them. Another lady that I knew, and she was already running ceremonies, and she needed somebody to help her in ceremonies, right? Like a second in command. And she was inviting me to help. So for me, first year, 2 years, it was literally kind of sometimes going there, and I had my day job, right? At the same time, I was going to Peru pretty much every year for at least months. I was even there was an interesting period of time, but I was changing jobs around my schedule of dietas. I would work 8 months and then I would take half a year break, go to Peru, come back, find another job, right? So it was kind of funny.
So you were cycling.
Funny. Exactly. It was really funny time when, if you ask me, what is the rationale behind it? What do you do with your life, Natasha?
So I want to ask you right now this question from the end of my list, right? Here you in San Francisco, you work as a product manager. There you are in Peru, and you listen to all this story about mermaid, living in Amazonia, other dimensions. I've heard some of those stories in Peru and some of those stories from you. So how they come together, how you live in these two worlds, and how you switching between magic reality and San Francisco production manager reality?
Well, a classical explanation of who the shaman is from Mircea Eliade. right? And his
Mm-hmm.
authority, his anthropologist who wrote a lot about shamanism. It's a
Mm-hmm.
walker between the worlds,
Yeah.
right? Surprise,
I always call it a
surprise. Pretty much
bridge
every
between the
maestro,
worlds.
surprise, surprise. Pretty much every maestro, like reliable maestro I met, one way or another, they would tell you there is a dieta time, and that's when you connect to spirit, right? Dieta is
Mm-hmm.
over. You got to get back to normal human life, right? Because it's not a
Mm-hmm.
monastic tradition. You go back and forth. And in going back and forth, you're developing kind of stable base in both worlds. And that's what it takes to kind of live this lifestyle and do this job. You cannot
Mm-hmm.
be completely disintegrated from reality. You cannot, I mean, like they're villagers, right? This tradition existed, it was invented, existed in villages. Those people, they don't have luxury to disconnect from reality. It's not California spirituality, right?
Or New York. Okay. Before
Yeah.
I have a lot of questions about it, I also, I'm so interested to ask you again about your adventures because last time you impressed me with a lot of
Ah.
interesting stories. But before this, I would like, I would serve myself. I had a real problem recently because I tried to present to my old college where I did my master process work institute, which is actually
Mm-hmm.
therapeutic modality. And I asked them, I wanted to present them my course about psychedelic education and process work in it. And they start to attack me with ideas of cultural appropriation.
Ah,
And I
okay.
start to research this topic because I couldn't understand how I connected to it. And now I have some ideas. How you like, what is it like? As I understand, you're a gringa, you have this great salary, you went to Peru, learn a little bit of shamanic tradition, went back, start to earn money. How is connected to cultural appropriation?
Mm-hmm. Good question. So the very framework of cultural appropriation, right? I'm not completely buying into that because it takes attention from real problem and kind of shifts our attention to this kind of identity-based framework. So
Mm-hmm.
they're shipibos or they're like tribal thing, and they have pretty much monopoly on specific knowledge, and then there are other people who should not touch it, which is, in my opinion, complete bullshit. It's just this leftish stuff, right?
So what
The
is
real
real
problem,
problem then?
the real problem is that either among Shipiba or among Gringa, there are people who know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
They put time and sweat and blood and determination
And
into
money
learning
and
actually,
resources.
right? Yeah. So basically, people who actually like genuine scholars of this tradition,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there are people who just use it for, it's like the shamanic fetish. Like, oh, I'm a shaman.
So
It's
how you
not
separate
complete.
those people?
Well, in Peru, we call them cantaderos. Because among
What does it
Shipibo, there
mean?
are plenty of them. There are plenty of them among Shipibo, right? Like, young boy who just like, yeah, I'm going to pour you ayahuasca, come. And he's singing folk songs, right? And for
Uh-huh.
people who don't understand, for them, it's like, yeah, that's Ikara, right? There's so many people who just like trying to pass for something and they're not, right? So in Peru, we call them cantaderos, singers, right?
Singers. Mhm.
In Russian-speaking community, there is this term naливайка.
Yeah, like people who just pour things.
Yeah, and they
Pour.
can use flowery
Pourer.
language to wrap it up into like poorer. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you tell them? It's not like black and white, of course. But usually, when you talk to practitioner, or when you interview your practitioner, if you consider ceremonies, what you're asking,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
who are your teachers,
Who are your
right?
teachers? Yeah.
How long you've been studying? Your teachers, do they know you, or you just like throwing names, right? How long you spend with this tradition, right? How connected you are. So did you go there for like say half a year, 10 years ago, and that's it? Or you stay connected, right? Who are your peers? Do you have your, like in Buddhist language, Sangha,
Some.
right? Yeah. Yeah. So
So
people,
how long you, like for this 12 years, how long did you stay with your teachers?
well, my last dieta was just, 4 months of Ayauma. It was end of 22, beginning of 23,
Uh-huh.
right? And then I went to mountains and I started studying Paco tradition,
Mm-hmm.
which is, there is interesting connection, but that's another big conversation between jungle and mountains, right?
Yeah, it's
So I'm
interesting.
pretty much
So you
connected.
know what? I followed you like I think since 2017. I see you every year in Peru, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
every year for several months, right?
You go to Peru, people who already experienced, we know how to open our own dieta.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone of like this gringo reliable practitioners who like really studying, we open our
Mm-hmm.
dietas like if I don't have at least 10 days of dieta time during like 3 months period, that's bad, right? Because you need to get yourself into this state, right? In this state
So
of
what is
connection.
dieta? You mentioned dieta, and can you
Yeah.
explain more? What is dieta? Because we know about ayahuasca, but we don't know much about dieta. Some people.
So plant diet, it's invention it's a great technology of Shipibo tribe. It's a
Only
huge
Shipiba?
actually Shipibo invented that. Many other tribes use like studying with them
Uh-huh.
practitioners, but Shipibo, that's actually their thing. It's
Ah,
their thing.
because I know you studied recently with other tribe, right?
But it was not dieta. It was not in the jungle
Ah,
tradition. It was with Quero in Quechua, and it's a Paco tradition of Andean mountains.
okay. So dieta and Shipiba, what do they do?
Your maestro connects you to spirit of specific plant
Mm-hmm.
energetically.
Mm-hmm.
You digest this plant, you drink this plant during period of time, right? And you spend your time mostly in isolation, not talking, right? And you connect to the spirit. You connect to this plant, and you let it basically
You let it in.
transform you.
Mm-hmm. So
And that's
how
main
does it
it's
look
a main
from
tool
like,
of
can you
learning.
explain some story about it? Because what happened basically, how you connect to the spirit of a plant or tree, and what can tree or plant can give you? It's like
Talking tomato.
can give to product manager from San Francisco. I still grab this identity. Tell us.
Mm. Well, uh, trees, plants, they've been around for a very long time, much longer than us, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you if you ever been to the jungle, you know the density of life. Right?
Oh wow,
From
yeah.
here, it might seem like some like idyllic place. It's so noisy. It's even more noisier than New York sometimes, I bet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So density of life is just incredible. And somehow they like if you look at our cities, the biggest cities, and if you look at the jungle, the territory of Amazonian jungle, right? Our huge cities, they're just like dot on a map,
Oh
right?
really?
But nature,
Even New York?
I mean, like look at Brazil, Peruvian jungle.
Brazil is
They're huge,
huge.
right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Forests in Canada, forests in Russia. So basically, natural ecosystems, like it's not just a jungle, but natural ecosystems somehow they can exist without destroying itself, without making it so toxic that it's impossible to live there, right? And that was actually my big kind of selling point when I went there. It's like somehow they know how to live. Like this form of life has wisdom and knowledge and practical skills of actually living intense life. Everyone is trying to get to the sun. Everyone is like sharing resources. It's super intense. It's not that life without competition or something, right? But nobody's stressed. Nobody's it's not a toxic environment per se,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's actually got my curiosity. How does it exist, right?
So what did you learn about dieta during dieta about this?
Well, it's a really huge topic. It really has to do with shifting the state of consciousness from I need to achieve, I need to get something, I need to get somewhere like this, like we are running, we're always running, right? If we are not achieving, then we are depressed. It's either that or this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this state of being, just being, right? Without explaining yourself, without trying to get somewhere, and being okay with that. Not having panic attacks if you don't have like full schedule for today, right? And that opens up this observation, this kind of state of listening.
Mm-hmm.
You shift into perception, which is, so here's a story. I was talking to
Give
a
us a story.
practitioner. He's about my age, right? And we were just chit-chatting, and I asked him like how life was when you were a kid, right? Did it change a lot over the last 12, like whatever, 30 years? And he's like, yeah. When I was like 12 years old, men started taking me to those night hunts. They were still hunting at the time. And they started taking him to hunt. But because he was a kid, he was given a task to kill snakes. And I was like, oh, okay, man, I got you. Like how you can kill snakes at night, right? Yeah, you're just making up this story. And he's like, no, you don't, like you cannot see them at night, right? And he's like, no, you cannot see them, but you can feel them,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So here is the perception. There's like embodied intuition, awareness of your environment. The 12 years old boy, right,
Mm-hmm.
at night can kill snake. I saw many times in the village. I'm going last quite a few years, Paoyan, and December, January up until April. It's a rain season, and often it's just like everything is covered in water and people moving with canoes, and you just cannot walk because the whole village is covered with water. And kids are playing in this water. They're playing there, and you see there is a snake, and there is like this, like a crocodile, like a local version of crocodile, and somehow they exist in this environment, and nobody's like biting those kids, right? So the
Why?
question, like, what are you doing not to interfere with your environment? Like, how do they know? Yeah,
So how?
they feel it.
You
They feel it.
you don't give exact instructions.
I heard, it's not something that somebody can explain to you over internet. You have to, it's really experiential knowledge. Like you there, you get confused, you go through your confusion, you don't know what you're doing here. And then bit by bit, your cinco sentidos, five senses, they start attuning to environment, right? And like in a jungle, it's like everything wants to either bite you or take your blood, or there's a lot of mosquitoes, so you have to be
Boy, I
aware of that.
remember. I remember I was
Yeah,
eaten like bad
yeah, yeah.
with mosquitoes.
My
Yeah.
first, my end of my first months of that first dieta, right? Super confusing. Like, what the hell is going on? They speak Spanish. I didn't speak Spanish at the time, and they chant Shipibo, like bloody Shipibo language. Now, do I need to learn another language now, right?
Do you speak
Super
Spanish right
confusing.
now?
I do. I understand pretty
Mhm.
well. I speak so, but I can get by. Yeah,
And
that's enough
Shipiba?
to.
Shipiba?
I chant in Shipibo.
Chanted.
Yeah, I chant in Shipibo.
Mhm.
Uh, so I'm sitting in my tambo, right? And then I fall asleep, and then I feel something goes in my face. And it's like, oh, maybe it's raining. And then it's like, oh, but there is no sound. And I'm already sleeping. It's like lucid dreaming, right? And then I realized that I had a bat, family of bats living under the roof of my tambo, right? And this bat, it just peed on me.
Oops.
And my matrix of a city girl, right, of program manager from Silicon Valley, it just crashed around me. I'm a person who just been peed on by the bat. That's how it works.
It's not a great advertisement for dieta for me, whatever. Not sure.
It's not
Okay,
pretty.
tell
It's
me
not pretty.
please. First, I have several questions. Okay,
Yes.
first question. First question, and maybe at some point, let me ask a couple questions, and we stop, and maybe other people can ask questions.
Yeah.
But my question is first, okay, you sit in the jungle, you develop your five senses, you become very sensitive to bats and jungle and mosquitoes and things. And what
Yeah.
happened then? You return to Silicon Valley. What happened then? How useful it, or it's maybe counter useful.
Well, you also sit in ceremonies. like 3 times a week, you drink medicine, you drink your dieta plants, and it's doing something to you, right? Some knowledge is opening up, some depths like which you might not even catch with your rational mind right away, but something is shifting, right? And then you turn to Silicon Valley and you're having this like massive culture shock, energetic shock, and you cannot walk outside because it's so like it's toxic. After the jungle, the hardest part of the whole thing is actually coming back and integrating back, right? And this whole protocol and going there, like adapting to Silicon Valley, and then going back to Peru, doing some more studies there, going back to Silicon Valley, adapting back to Silicon Valley. So basically, you developing stability and immunity, right, to specific types of energies, and bit by bit, you start figuring out, okay, so what is it here in Silicon Valley that's so just disbalancing? Like, oh, the base is it's almost like anxiety is in the air, right?
Yeah,
Ambition, anxiety, this mix of fear, this mix of irrational fears, yada yada. Okay, so that's how it feels, right? And you start dieting another plant with intentions like, okay, I want to learn to deal with these specific types of energies, right?
What
And then
kind
in
of plant did
ceremonies,
you diet to learn how to deal with
Ayahuasca, for
mainstream
example,
anxiety? Huh?
Ayahuasca, for example, or you can diet
Which?
Ayahuasca tree, Ayahuasca,
I
Ayahuasca.
don't know. It's Peruvian, right?
Yeah, so basically, we're talking about defense mechanisms, right? You need to
Defense.
develop defense mechanisms. And you need to understand what kind of energy affecting you. So what is there, right? In jungle is very simple. Toxic stuff is called brujeria, black magic, right? And people study it, people learn it, and people learn how to defend yourself from brujeria. It's not just from other people. It's also like spirits from the jungle came last night, and now we have like half of our center like crying, purging, and people getting nervous breakdowns. Like, oh, that's bait spirits arrived. Right? For the future, use your pipe, your tobacco, and before you go to bed, walk around your tambo. Right? That's how you protect yourself. Can you
So
imagine
did
that
you
I
do
came
in
back?
Silicon Valley the same?
Absolutely. First year, I was just, I was actually, at some point, I was staying in a house of my friends in Palo Alto, right? Palo Alto, downtown.
I know, Paul.
And I was at, it's like a child. You repeat what you saw, and then at the same time, your more kind of adult and rational mind is figuring out like what exactly here is kind of working algorithm, right? Where is this ethnic stuff, and where is like actual working algorithm, right? So the fact that tobacco as a plant and smoke of tobacco has certain kind of filtering mechanism, like vibrations, if you wish, right? So when you cover yourself with your protection, right? So that's working, right?
Possible.
Perfumes.
Yeah. I've had this experience at least.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's
I have enormous number of questions, but before we open, I think I want to stop, open microphones, and maybe ask more questions. I don't know how,
okay.
something like that. But before, like, I just want to do, like, if you want to say something about, like, I know you created some workshop, or maybe like announce something, it's good time, or nothing. I don't know. Any
let's
kind
wait,
of.
let's wait at the end. It's not that I'm going to be doing be making a huge announcement. Yeah,
No,
I would actually rather hear what people might be curious about and interested.
Okay, let's hear. So questions, because I have plenty of questions. So if you don't ask, I'll ask more.
I see somebody raising. I see somebody raising hand.
Did you have breakdown among clients? Oksana is asking.
Say it again.
Did you have any breakdown among clients?
Among what?
Clients, your personal clients had did they have a breakdown?
My personal, I'm missing the word. Sorry, guys.
Break. Let me hand you. Breakdown, like разваливались ли клиенты у тебя?
Among my clients, among my
Да,
clients.
yeah. Breakdown.
Uh,
I don't know what breakdown in this.
yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Like what is like? Did I have people who were crying in ceremonies? Of course I did. Did I have people who were like screaming in ceremonies? A couple of times, but I'm really not into screaming matches, and I select people who can actually process internally. I'm not very much into external processing, especially in this tradition. It's shocking
Okay, Oksana, wait,
for
Oksana mentioned, like, did people went to mental illness after your ceremony? Did you had like people got apart?
the only case when people might go into serious mental illness after ceremonies if they had preconditions, right?
Yes.
Bipolar, schizophrenia, this stuff when mind is already broken or fractured. Let's put it this way, fractured.
You know,
Then ayahuasca can seriously damage. Yes, it's possible. The ayahuasca can damage, and like every responsible practitioner, including myself, right? I talk to people before they come to ceremony. It's not open door. Like I have a conversation with every single person who comes to ceremonies, and I do ask them questions, right? And of course, not everyone is completely honest, but you can see the signs, right? I believe everyone who's working with people, like pretty quickly, we develop this eye for like, oh, something is fishy, right? And then I honestly tell people this, like, I don't feel like ayahuasca is good fit for you, or at least like I'm not a good practitioner for you, right? It doesn't feel
mhm,
like, yeah, I should serve you medicine, right? Did I
mhm.
ever have people getting crazy after my ceremonies? No, God forbid, right? But inside of ceremonies, like everyone had their moments, and who never
Of
had the
course.
moment like when you promising yourself in ceremony, never again. Never again. I'm gonna drink. It's like let's survive till the morning, and that's it.
I
So
never had that.
you never had it.
No.
Oh,
Ayahuasca is my good friend, not a bad friend. But I've had, because I'm a basically therapist who work for years and years with
yeah,
integration, and my community drink ayahuasca, and I
yeah.
worked with plenty of people who had serious consequences and couldn't get together for, like, some people for half a year, were sick for half a year. So I did get the situations after ceremonies, not my ceremony, like they come to me to integrate things, not a lot, but I've seen that.
Does it happen in like other ceremonies? A lot of things happen. Like sometimes, like if you just listen to those like scary stories, oh my God, it, it cannot be lie because nobody can like come up with this stuff, right? It
No,
must be
no, no, no.
true.
Some of the
My
people I
imagination is
knew
beyond
them
it.
and know them, and etc.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's like you need to be very mindful coming to this. Also research shaman, talk shaman. Okay, we have more questions.
When
Um,
people say never
I would
again,
like to know what shaman sees when doing a healing. What do you see when you do
well,
healing?
developing shamanic healing, it's a kind of that's one of the things that like you study for. Actual vision, it depends from person to person. It also depends from night to night. Some night you have like really good visuals. Some nights you go more on like kinesthetics. Important thing is that since we talk before ceremony, we understand intentions, right? We understand what the person came for, right? So whatever you're doing, whatever I'm doing in ceremonies, it's actually in line with intentions. So baseline work, it's like you need to align variation, so it's not like all over the place. It's not so turbulent. Person is centered. Person's variation, it's altered state. It's visions, right?
Variation is
So
out.
it's more
Uh-huh.
together.
I
Yes,
like
yeah.
this word. It's like variation.
No, it actually means drunk. Mariado is drunk in Spanish,
Okay. But sounds
but it sounds
romantic.
very romantic, right?
Yeah, it is.
Variación. Yeah, so there's some baseline work which you always do it. It's really like being an engineer. It's not so different from being an engineer in terms of protocols, right? you do this, you do that. You need to, like, if somebody's like about to purge, but you know, this state when it's like it's not coming out, you can help people with chant, with specific vibrations when it's coming out. But when it comes to deep work, it's always related to intention. If they don't ask you for that, you don't push them into anything.
But if you have like person who come with like a concrete disease or childhood trauma, what do you see? How do you see it? What do you see?
Sometimes I really see like a movie, what's happening there.
You can see
Sometimes
a
I look
movie.
at the person, it's like scanning and seeing specific colors. So maybe you don't even see the person, but you see like, okay, here is the darkness, here is like the certain patterns, and they're out of like broken here. It
Uh-huh.
really depends.
Mhm.
And
So
when we
sometimes
study, like
colors, sometimes movie. Mhm.
sometimes colors, sometimes movies, sometimes diseños. Diseños, it's patterns.
Patterns. Uh-huh.
Patterns, yes, yes. And of course, during the study, you actually talk to your maestro, you tell us like, okay, that's what I see. And he's like, yeah, that's that. Or it's like, no, it's kind of bullshit. You just watching your películas, your
Uh-huh.
movies. It's like, okay.
I see. So you're creating your database basically, and then you can compare.
Yeah,
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 that's
yeah,
what we
yeah,
do in many shamanic traditions. You have a
yeah,
database of previous
yeah,
cases, and you kind of
yeah,
can see, and then you check if it's this or that, and you kind of can
yeah,
get into.
yeah.
It's easier to do it.
And perception is not just visual. Like some people, they really good with smell,
Uh-huh.
and they can smell specific energies. Like you're sitting in the room, it's like, okay, it smells like rotten fish,
Uh-huh.
and everyone knows what it means. Or it's like it smells like da da da. So there's specific, there's some
Yeah.
interesting.
It's
Uh,
like there are a lot of my students. We know that people perceive in different channels, and some
yeah,
people more visual. Like I personally reflect everything in sensation in my body. Doesn't mean I take it in my body. I just my body knows where is what,
yeah.
and you kind of see patterns and or smells. It's different. Okay, another. When people say never again, is it because they feel physically sick, like nausea, vomiting,
Oh,
etc., or is start it because suspects start to feel emotionally scared and
yeah.
overwhelmed?
So
Oi.
uh, just a second. I'm thinking how to better formulate it. For some people, physical, that's kind of the edge of their perception, right? For some people, it's emotional, and emotional discomfort, emotional pain, that's the most like challenging thing, right? So from the field of emotional intelligence, our Western field of emotional intelligence, we know that like every emotion, once we start like fighting it or suppressing it, we don't want to experience it. That's basically the only way to hold it steady. When you allow it, it starts moving, right? And then it transforms, right?
Mhm.
So we have quite a big backlog usually of those unprocessed emotions. Usual suspects: fear, another fear, yeah,
Oh, you know.
envy,
Mm.
what we called like dark energies, like toxic energies. Like, I mean, we're human beings. Do you know any human being who lived the entire life without feeling jealous or without feeling envious? In certain situations, it's quite appropriate reaction, but we suppress
Yeah,
it,
I think.
right?
Yeah.
Some people fear. For some people, it could be love. I know people who had like huge taboo on love and they cannot feel love, right? So
Or
once
bliss.
we start, or bliss, yeah,
I am always telling people stories that ayahuasca tortured me with bliss for hours and hours. And they're like, so what?
yeah.
Yeah.
So whatever is our personal taboo, whatever is our personal discomfort zone, and then she opens this door, right, and you start feeling it, and you're feeling whatever. It's like all this stuff. It's like it's like twisting you, right? So that's the moment when you say never again.
Mhm.
But then, of course, you come back because you see the results. Because once you process like this grinder, and once you grind it, it's like, oh, I can breathe now. It's okay.
Kind of.
It's actually
Yeah.
okay, right? I'm a human being. I'm not some like creature walking in this corset of appropriate or inappropriate behavior and just like this, I cannot do this. Like, yeah, I'm a human being, right?
Okay. I have somebody who wants to finally speak, not right. Margarita, I'm asking you to unmute. You can ask your question.
I'm sorry, I'm in the car, so it's not
Рит, привет.
convenient to write. I want to ask maybe a pretty silly question in regards of this conversation. So, as you said, when you're doing the ceremony, the traumatic barriers are actually brought down, which are suppressing our true emotions, and all of it. And it could be emotional, I understand, and people are getting a completely new view on their life or what happened to them in their life. But do you think, for how long will it last? Because in my work, I know that even when we are bringing all of these traumatic barriers down, and trauma is very big, it's returning back.
You're
I
breaking
have a
down.
friend.
Good question, Rita. How long does it stay?
I have a friend who doesn't even, he's getting prepared for going to ayahuasca ceremony, and his whole focus is on, I will reset my whole life. He doesn't want to hear about any other kind of therapy or something. So I just want to know what the actual purpose of ayahuasca, or it's repetitive, or it's once in a lifetime, or and why people would go to ayahuasca ceremony rather to other forms of therapy.
Okay, yeah.
Good question.
Yeah. So there are layers of our consciousness, right? Certain things we can address with language, certain things we can address with emotions, certain things we can address on a physical level, and certain things we can address in altered states. And we are talking now about some sort of psychological traumas, problems, or let's say rewiring is needed, right? Somebody's identity, it was quite useful 10 years ago, program manager in Silicon Valley, great identity, right? But then over years, for example, without any specific huge traumas, it just getting, it's time for snake to change the skin, right? So some of those things, they could be addressed on a verbal level, talk therapy. Some of them, they could be addressed through movement or body practices, right? And what ayahuasca does, because again, we are talking about one of the oldest spirits, right? That has intelligence, and it's a medicinal spirit, right? So she does specific kind of rewiring. When you get this, this, I don't know how to get to those zones in talk therapy. But I totally understand your question that people who just want to, I want to change my life and I don't want to think about it. I don't want to process anything. No, it doesn't work this way. You need integration. You can start with ayahuasca, but then for this thing to actually root in your system so that it becomes yours, it's not just some revelation or insight that you had, but you integrate it in your life. You have to own it. You have to earn it.
Well,
right?
Of course.
Yeah. So I'm all for integrative work. I'm all for cognitive therapy, actually understanding where my triggers are, where my beliefs are, how my beliefs shape my life, yada, 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 yada. And then with people, especially with people who have this culture, of this level of psychological culture, they can address, right? They can address triggers. They can address identity. They know themselves. And then when those people go into a ceremony, you will not see those screaming babies, right? Who just all over the place. Those people, they're practitioners. They know what they're doing. It's going to be much more precise work, right? So yeah, I'm all for integration. And when somebody says, I just want to change my entire life, I immediately ask, what in your life is so unbearable that you just want to throw it away and replace with something else? And that's how we start the conversation,
Traumas are coming up one after another. We are so much traumatized that I believe you cannot do just one ceremony in the lifetime, because it comes trauma after trauma. After one is cured, another is coming up. One is cured, another is coming up. There are a lot. We have a lot of different traumas. That's I know it
Well,
exactly.
you see, trauma, it's like, in my opinion, right, as important as it is. But I would not suggest building your identity around trauma. Because I've seen people who coming to ayahuasca 15 years and they're like, oh, I'm in a process, I'm on a path of healing. It's like, dear God, when are you going to start living your life? You don't have to be perfect to live your life, right? You can be overweight, you can be with wrinkles, and you have to have like dozens of traumas, but you're still living your life. Right?
Yeah,
That's who you are. So basically accepting yourself as you are, that's
it's
kind of the biggest shift.
It's a
Not
matter of
getting into this
integration.
perfectionist path when it's like, oh, I'm coming. Like, the moment I become trauma free, drama free, right? That's when like real me comes here. It's like, no, that's your perfectionist talking.
It's a matter of
Makes
integration.
sense. Makes sense, Natasha.
Yeah.
Okay, we're coming
Okay.
to the end. I have one more written question, which is
Yeah.
interesting or not. Will it help to remove generational BM? I think BM is black magic influences. I know who's asking. Generational black magic influences.
The generational black magic. So if somebody prefers to talk about generational stuff, ancestral stuff, of course we can talk this language, but very much that we need to pay our attention. We need to pay attention to in this lifetime, right? It somehow manifests in our lifetime, in this life, right? So it's much kind of effective route to the essence of the problem, not talking about generation, but like exactly in your life. Like if you remove this filter about generational black magic, like what exactly in your life you feel so helpless about that you need to assign properties of black magic and generational stuff. Like what exactly is the pain in your life? That's how I approach it.
I like it. I like
Yeah.
it. Let's go to the core of things. And I would say, yes, ayahuasca may go quite deep sometimes, and could be both super healing, could be destructive, as I call it. Happens, both happen. Okay, we are like almost there. I just want to say something to community, because most of the people from my community know me personally. I'm kind of considering right now to invite Natasha here at some moment. And if you're interested, just private message me, so I kind of know what the atmosphere, what the feeling, and we may arrange something. I'm thinking I don't need it, but it would be interesting. Юлий Фраткин wants to ask something. Let's do this.
Наташа, очень спасибо за очень интересный разговор. Вот,
We speak English this time, Юлий.
Okay, yeah. So my specific questions about tech companies, because I also work with like Facebook and Uber. They send a lot of patients to me. I'm a psychiatrist, and they want us to prescribe medication for these people. And more we work with this company, more people coming, because they under a huge amount of stress and all these evaluations and assessment and kind of hierarchy on this company lead to the condition that people burn out, people extremely anxious, people extremely volatile, and we consider to be evidence-based treatment, because we gave them therapy and we gave them stimulants, we gave them anti-anxiety medication. And it's a vicious cycle. We see that this doesn't lead anywhere. So how these new ideas and treatments could be evidence-based treatment and integrated to real life, not just be shamanic and excluding or boutique kind of treatment, but become really mainstream treatment for these people. And not just treatment, but way of life and way of thinking and way of integration demands of our life to ourselves.
I will give, it's a very good question. I'll give time course, Natasha to answer, but I also want to answer something. Okay.
Yeah, go on.
No, I want you first. You first.
Yeah. Would it make sense to make prescribed medication out of ayahuasca? That's the question.
No.
No. How we
do
can
you
change
make
this
it
practice?
evidence-based, like, is it possible to do that?
Meaning, like, you drink ayahuasca and this condition is going to be solved, you do this and this condition should be solved, or... So,
Not just ayahuasca,
what
but
you're
the
looking
way of...
for, like, what? I don't understand your framework.
Okay, may I
it's-
answer to Yulik and
Uh-huh.
Natasha maybe process for a moment? I can tell you, Yulik, this is different approach to healing.
Yeah, I know that.
We're not concentrated on medicine. We concentrated on raising the healer as a tool. Is a very, Natasha, or me as well, or Ed, we are very complicated instruments of healing, which raised for many, many years developed, and that's through us. And you can test the healer. You can. There are certain properties of the healer which you can test and understand. Is it true healer or not? But I don't think this methodology can, like, transcribe to the existing medical system. I don't know. It's a very complicated question. And I know we talk about it. Natasha.
Let me just clarify. I'm not talking about integrating this to medical system. I'm asking about how this way of thinking and processing could be part of normal life. Because right now it's totally screwed up, and I feel that our tools totally inappropriate to the tasks and to the need for these people who in this daily wheelchair and running meal. And I really appreciate what you do, and I'm just curious, is there any way how we can bring this to this world on major scale?
You know what happened? You lost Natasha.
I'm sorry.
She's not ready to meet medical system, Yulik. I do. Natasha, you
Okay.
back? Natasha? You
I was
back.
disconnected, and now I'm kind of getting back. But
I noticed. Is it
Yes.
medical system who did it to you?
Yeah, do you hear me? Do you see me? Am I back?
Yeah. Yeah. You're here.
Yeah. So, Yuli, when we talk about this kind of line of work and plant medicine in general and all this stuff, it's very relational, right? The quality of practitioner, the kind of skill set of practitioner, it hugely depends on what kind of relationship you have with those spirits and with those plants. Two different people can be dieting same plant. One will get a lot, another will not get much. And the biggest problem I see in the corporate world, me coming from the corporate world as well, is that we're losing human connections. That's the source of stress, right? So if we're going to wrap up ayahuasca in a pill and give him another pill, it kind of undermines the whole purpose. Because the biggest healing we get in this plant medicine field, it's like we're restoring connections. We're becoming open to connections. We're becoming, we understand that human being without another human being, without society, without group, without tribe, we actually suffer, right? And a corporate framework, it's one of the most toxic frameworks for humans to experience themselves as a human being. You become machine. You become like this, like small part of the machine. And that's what creates, it's not amount of work. It's not 12 hours a day work time. It's actually this disconnect from people who sitting next to you, disconnect from the entire kind of entirety of the productization that is happening there. It's like you just become this like almost unhuman part of a huge machinery, right? Fixing that is a healing. Not wrapping plant medicine into another pill and you just prescribe and people take it and then automatically it's going to solve. No. In ayahuasca experience, when you feel connection to actual spirit, to medicine, we call it mamacita. Many people, mamacita or abuelita. It's very human. It's very intimate, if you wish. With plants that we're dieting, people who've been dieting, like they just look at their eyes when they're explaining it. It's like talking about your kids, like talking about your beloved, like talking about your sister or brother, right? And that quality of connection, like restoring the ability to create this quality of connection. So it's not dysfunctional relationship. It's not like, oh, we're going to have another Thanksgiving, we have to bear it because we hate each other. It's this like openness and connectedness and appreciation and deep gratitude. It's like, oh my God, we are connected. I see your soul. You see my soul. That's where the healing happens. It's not biochemistry per se, even though biochemistry, of course, is important, but it's kind of material level. But on the psychological level, it's this mystery of human to human connection, human to spirit connection, human to another being, this tree. How I connect to this tree. What's happening actually? Is it my imagination? Like, how do I know that I'm connecting to the spirit and not to my, delusional whatever? So that's the thing. That's what makes world like juicy and tasty and interesting. That's where the magic comes from. So please don't wrap it in a pill. I'm going to be crying.
Okay. No, it's what exactly I want to hear because.
Yeah. Thank you, Natasha. You're finishing with such a inspiration and great words. And thank you, Yulik, for asking these questions.
I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm happy that it works.
I'm also happy to wrap up a small conversation, and I enjoyed it a lot, really. And I didn't ask all my questions. So maybe I'll ask you to continue at some point. And also, if somebody interested, just write me privately so we can arrange something. Thank you, Natasha. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dina. Thank you, everyone, for showing
York.
up. I really appreciate your interest in this topic. It's always fun to share something which it's literally like to Mamacitas talking about children. It's like, oh, and mine. So it's very much kind of those vibes.
You know how I call it? I call it Her Majesty.
Tell me.
Mamacita Chekranita Ayahuasca. Her Majesty.
Yep. Yes.
Okay. Have you and to be continued. Write me questions, requests. We'll schedule something else.